child that your skin can bring you so much pain. Now I hear you say you got the best of both ways. Won't you come and take a walk in my shoes and tell me if you take my place? Undercover of my skin, I've heard all your names. If it's all the same, I'll keep on walking.
Hey all, and welcome to what I'd say the January/February edition of Shoe Geeks for the Inside Running podcast. My name is Michael, and I am a director at the Sports and Arthritis Clinic in Adelaide and competitive over 35s runner. And I'm joined with my semi-competitive, joined by my co-host over in, first of all, Anglesey, Julian Spence, the owner of the running company Ballarat, and back collecting the most volume out of all of us at the moment. How you going, mate?
It's funny how things change so quickly, isn't it? All
Yeah.
of a sudden, I'm wearing the shoes out and you blokes are collecting them in the cupboard. Well, not you. Tommy is.
Well, to be honest, Tom, you probably have had this conversation a lot. Tom, podiatrist in Sydney at Walker Street Podiatry. Everyone knows you're not running at the moment, and you probably have told the story like 50 times already, but a lot of the listeners wouldn't know why you're running. Can you give us a bit of an outline on what's happened and when it happened and what the outcome is and what you're planning to do?
Sure. Yeah, and I've had that conversation many times every day in the last 5 or 6 weeks in the clinic. So I'm turning up to clinic in a boot every day and explaining myself every day. So yeah, it's I had a little run in with the car basically. So I think everyone assumes it's a running injury. I was running at the time, but it was the car that clipped my forefoot. It's my own fault. Yeah, just running along Pacific Highway in Sydney, trying to cross the road, and stepped onto the road, and the car got me. So I've got a fourth metatarsal fracture and a little fracture on the side of the big toe. So just it's going to be about, I'd say, 8 weeks in the boot.
Yep.
And
That's
I've
brutal.
got about 3 weeks to go.
Yep.
How much pain were you in?
Yeah, I was in no pain for about half an hour, really, like hardly anything. So I actually, when it happened, I told the guy, like, yeah, no, I'm all good. It's, I think I'm fine. And I was walking, and actually for the first few minutes, I was thinking, I'll just walk this off, and then I'll start jogging again. And then like I kept walking. It wasn't getting better. And then it got to a point where like 10 minutes later, I couldn't really walk anymore. And then half an hour later, I knew I'd done something bad. Called Lana up. She came and picked me up, and we headed over to hospital and X-rays, and found out a couple little breaks in there.
Sucks, Tom. No shame hiding it. I'm one of your biggest fans. It sucks because I know the shape you're in as well. So I hope it's a quick recovery, and I'm sure. I reckon you'd be an easy person to live with still when you're not running. I reckon you can fill your time with other stuff, can't you? I know Julian wouldn't be. He'd be terrible when he's injured, but I reckon you'd fill your time pretty well with other stuff.
Exactly. That's what you got to do. You got to occupy yourself with other aspects. So yeah, which has been fine.
I hear you're working a lot. Doing the Sydney Swans podiatry job, mixing in your own work, and lots of other case studies. I get little messages throughout the day. So it's the busiest you've ever been, no doubt.
Yeah, I'm seeing lots of interesting cases. So I'm pestering you a little bit more for a little bit of collaboration. It's good.
That's good. So you can't really tell us much about your running. So what are you doing? Like obviously wearing a moon boot.
So I've got my footwear here. So, so I'm using
That looks like a Marty McFly, one of those Nike boots.
Did you put a heel raise in it?
Yeah. So I've got a heel raise in there. So I've got my orthotic in there, and I got a 7mm heel raise in there. Yeah. So now it's got the rocker design, so that's offloading my forefoot well.
Yep.
So
and you put the orthotic in just to shift the pressure behind the forefoot. Oh yeah, nice.
Yeah, exactly. So and then I've got the Hoka Carbon X version 1. I've brought it back out. It's back. I never tried it.
Going well. It was a bit of it wasn't really one of those high performing carbon shoes, was it? It was more of a daily trainer almost, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's what I used it for at the time, just like a bit of a mileage daily trainer. But yeah, it worked.
It was very harsh. That shoe, so harsh on the foot.
Yeah, it wasn't soft. It was stable, which is actually why it's working well for me now, because it's I don't want a soft shoe. I actually wore the Invincible on the other foot, and for a couple of days, and it was terrible. It was like a rigid, solid boot, and then this like marshmallow soft high stacker on the other side, and it was a huge mismatch. So
good test for the brain though, changing each step.
Yeah.
So if you're in a moon boot,
that's me.
Do people get injured because they're walking around with this gimpy leg, like changing their gait? Is there often injuries associated with
very common? Yeah, it's very, very common. So the big one is like hips and lower back. So a lot of people will get hip pain on the other on the side of or the other side. So yeah, I've pretty much got I've got like a 10 mil heel raise and an orthotic on the other side to try and match up. So
do you feel,
as best you can,
you
got to match up.
Do you feel it all the way to the forefoot as well? So you get like some substance under there when you're toeing off, because the height difference is obviously you don't just want to wear a high heel, do you? Do you get a bit more like height in the forefoot as well, or you can't really do that in a shoe?
Yeah, I can't really fit it in, so I just try to find like a stable high stacker. So this is kind of like one of the higher stacks that is a bit stable, that has a plate. And then I'll get the lift just at the heel. So it's close enough. Like it doesn't.
What would you give him? What would you give him, Julian? What shoe would you give him to wear with it?
I'd probably go for an Asics Glide Ride, I reckon. Firm, rocket, pretty high stack.
Second iteration then. It needs to be the second iteration to be firm.
What, the Glide Ride?
Yeah, the third iteration. The third one's not
pretty
soft.
soft.
Third one's not hard anymore.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we can get to that later.
Yeah. What about a Stinson? You put him in a Stinson.
Yeah, they're good, but they're hard to come by right now. What about I'd consider a Bondi with a heel raise in it, because it takes that. What we're talking about, that walking gait, we'd put a lot more load through the back of the shoe, and sometimes those Bondis and the soft shoes, they're a bit too squishy at the back, and you feel like you sink down. And because it's a rocket shoe, it's already a lower offset. So I've actually been wearing my Bondis at work and loving a heel raise in them.
Yeah, absolutely. That's good. So, Julian, you're running over 100 Ks a week and you're training for stuff at the moment, and it's summer over there, trails. You're doing heaps of heels at the moment. What are you wearing?
Yeah, I've got a collection of shoes that I've basically just I've back catalogued since I was injured. So I'll get a shoe and just put it aside. So I'm rolling through a few. I haven't actually. The only new shoe that I've grabbed lately is the Kawana from Hoka. So it's there's a lot of delays on shoe companies right now releasing models because of we've already talked about the reasons why, but this was one of the only new models that's arrived in store in the last, I reckon probably 2 or 3 months. So we're getting a bit antsy in the store, all the staff. So when a new shoe comes in, we're all over it. But this actually suited what I was after anyway. As I've started to run more, I've started to run a little faster. I've dropped a few kilos, and I wanted something that wasn't as like big and bulky and beefy like my Cliftons that I was wearing, my More Trails, my Invincibles, my Endorphin Shifts. I wanted something that's a little more agile, a little bit snappier off the ground, something that I could run sort of lower 4-minute K pace if I wanted to, and just, I guess, feel a bit lighter on the ground. And that's the Kawana. So that's what is owning that place for me at the moment. Now, I can't even remember seeing this in person when we bought it for the store. It was during COVID and showings were all over Zoom. So we never actually saw samples. I think Hoka in the past have struggled in their range by making too many shoes too similar without really polarizing them enough. And that lighter weight, easy running shoe they've had in the past. They've had like the Mac, the Rincon, the Clifton. This is the Kawana, but they've also had the Clayton. And so it's been like we've always just gone, okay, well, we'll pick the Clifton. for the store. We'll dabble in some other stuff like the Mac
Yep.
4 we've dabbled in. And the Kawana to me was standing out as one of those shoes that maybe didn't have its own identity.
So where are they placing it, Julian? Like in terms of like the line of the Hokas, where are they placing it amongst the shoes and what sort of market they're trying to go for?
Yeah, so what they're going for is what the marketing team wants them to go for, which at the moment for Hoka seems like a shoe that you can wear out on a jog but then go to the gym in, which I think is
I heard that. Yeah.
It's undercutting the shoe. It's a bit disrespectful to the shoe, I think, because this to me feels like more of a pure runner's shoe than some of the other models in their range. And I think if you're talking about it as a gym shoe, then you're selling it a bit short, because to me it's like if you came into our store, how we first described it, took it out of the box, the staff, I think it was Toby and Jimmy, grabbed it and they go, feels like less shoe than a Bondi, but a little more shoe than a Clifton. So it's firmer than a Clifton, but it's lighter than a Bondi. And it's somewhere in that realm where the Clifton, in the past, its biggest criticism has been that it turns mushy really quickly. So it compresses too fast, it gets too flexible, it gets too sloppy underfoot. And the Kawana helps to address this by being a firmer density shoe and being a little bit stiffer. So for me, I was hoping it was more of a relevant or improved Clifton for what I like in a shoe. But they're actually both in my lineup right now, with the Clifton being more of a double run shoe. So replacing in the range for me, like the New Balance More, or what else have I run in as double shoes? Like the Glide Ride from Asics, or the Invincible. Or the New Balance 1080, the Asics Nimbus Lite. It's more traditional. Whereas Kawana sits in the shoe that I put on if I'm out there for 70 minutes, and I'll give myself a bit of a license to pick it up if I want.
And that's just it. The Clifton it doesn't feel bad within the first 0 to 30 minutes, but it does. I feel like it's almost like it's got enough midsole to not bottom out as such as well, but it's a bit lifeless at the end of the run. The Kawana is a hell of a lot firmer in terms of its density of foam when you first put it on. I'm sure Tom will chat about this, that if we call this rear foot rocker through here, this sort of grinds his gears a little bit. He really loves to feel the heel. The rocker in the forefoot is just stiff because the midsole density is firmer, right? It's definitely worth noting that it's probably a narrower shoe. I don't actually know the width that comes in, but it just feels like I don't think it comes in the double width like the Clifton does. So it is a little bit narrower, I would say. I just get my foot into it. I'm probably on the edge of being a D to 2E, and it sort of is tightish, but not ridiculous. I definitely prefer this shoe at the faster paces. Like I feel like if I was hitting the rear part of the foot, it felt like a bit of a brick on the base of the foot. Like it was quite a heavy shoe, like bottom heavy. But when the pace lifted up and I was sort of striking that sort of like midfoot, forefoot, I sort of really hit this lateral part of your forefoot a lot. It felt really responsive. So this shoe felt good at closer to 4-minute K pace today than it did at 5-minute K pace the day before. But the shoe feels the same from 0 minutes to 60 minutes to 70 minutes from yesterday. I haven't taken it any longer, but the Clifton doesn't feel the same after 30, 40 minutes. And it feels like it's a bit, maybe a bit more lifeless, I'd say. And maybe that's the flexibility that increases as well, you were mentioning, Julian.
Yeah.
How would you guys...
I took the Clifton for a 2-hour run a couple of weeks ago, and by the time I got back, it felt like I had a Nike Free on my foot almost. That's how flexible and sloppy it was. And I got a sore Achilles like immediately after, and I thought, this shoe doesn't handle 2 hours for me. I need something stiffer or firmer. And that's Kawana's been that shoe. So
I think a higher body mass person goes into this shoe as well, no doubt, with a higher durometer foam for sure.
What would you compare it to? Like another brand models? What's it most similar to? Is it like an Infinity? Is it like an Infinity, like with the slightly firmer foam and?
It's not. It doesn't compress quite as much as an Infinity. It's definitely not quite as soft, and it's definitely a bit stiffer in the forefoot as well. So it's a more responsive Infinity with maybe a bit more weight to it. So I reckon the Infinity, similar to the Clifton, like as the run got a bit further, perhaps maybe the shoe became a bit sloppier as well. This is a hell of a lot more stable. Like the surface area of the shoe is so wide, very much like a Clifton, but with being a higher density foam. They've even filled in the rear foot through here as well. So, and you can see down on the profile of the shoe, looking top to bottom, it does have a little bit of a flare as well, medial laterally at the heel. And I'm not sure if it's aesthetic or if it's like a functional design. You can see this, I think they call it a swallow tail. This rear part of the foot. I think maybe going downhill probably means it increases your plantar flexion moment a touch more. It's a snappier shoe, Tom. It's definitely firm. It needs a 9 mil heel pitch for you for sure because it's almost too firm with the rocker on it. Yep. But it may feel different. 50Ks now might be a different story.
Yeah, so when you ask that question, Tom, I'm thinking, under like the foam density feels something like a Brooks Ghost, but when I wouldn't compare it to a Brooks Ghost because it doesn't ride at all like that. Given that it's a lower offset shoe with more of a rocker, it's probably a little more rigid through the forefoot. To me, it still felt natural. When I say natural underfoot, for me, natural is sort of midfoot strike. When I've run in the Brooks Adrenaline, which is very similar to a Ghost, really, I land more through the rear foot. I can really tell that the heel to toe offset. To me, this one feels closer towards something how a Nimbus Light would ride, but just a little bit more guts underfoot and a little bit more less spongy, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, I found the foam a similar, the foam a similar like firmness to almost the Sky. If I hit the Sky pretty hard, it'd be relatively soft. If I didn't hit it hard, it'd feel quite firm. So when the pace got higher, I'd hit the ground harder. I felt like I could compress it a bit more. So out of the lineup I have, I mean, obviously it's a lot less pitched. So if you're hitting the rear foot of this shoe, I think perhaps maybe the transition feels a little bit dead. But if you're more in the midfoot, forefoot, the transition's quite quick and quite sharp. So I prefer it more than a Clifton. 80% of my running at the moment is on the trails. And it's just a little bit more versatile on a surface that sort of keeps changing in terms of terrain and being softer. So it's a bit more nimble. Whereas a Clifton sort of doesn't quite give you as much feedback. So you might prefer it more on the bitumen.
Tom, what do you got against the heel of this shoe, the rear foot?
To me, it feels like there's part of the shoe is missing. So if anyone's watching this, I got this out to highlight. So I got my cheese board here.
What?
I came prepared, guys.
That looks heavy.
So yeah, it's heavy, right?
Well done.
Like you can see, like once you get it on board like that, how aggressive the rear foot rocker is. So the contact point is towards the midfoot, actually. So anyone that likes feeling foam under the heel, I don't think will enjoy this. Whether people actually know they like foam under the heel or not, I think is another question. I know that I like it. When I tried on, I mean, I've only walked in it, so I really got no idea how it rides running, but I've tried enough shoes on just walking in them to know that to me, it's just going to feel like it's missing like part of the shoe. Like it hasn't got much foam directly underneath my heel.
More, can't you? Like if you do hit the heel, you can sit back on it further.
To me, it just feels like my transition to the forefoot's a bit slower. So whereas I think for some people, it's almost the opposite. So I think it's just one of those features that will suit some people's mechanics and others not. I've got a history of Achilles issues, obviously, as well. So like for me, it kind of feels like it loads through the Achilles a little bit more. But I can see that design feature like globally, like in terms of the average injury rates and the location of these injury rates. It would be helpful for like the common ones, which would be like anterior knee pain. So runners that are getting like anterior knee pain, like kneecap pain, that design feature I think probably would be helpful because it may prevent so much overstriding or hitting hitting the heel so hard because it's almost counterintuitive. Like there's less foam, so you'd think it'd be a harder impact, but it actually helps with that transition from heel to forefoot for people that I think land a little bit further out, a little bit hard on the heel. It might lessen that impact by having the rocker design at the heel. For me, it doesn't Tom, work.
Just want to cut in. Are you suggesting that it helps people land further under their center of gravity, or are you saying something happens after they land that changes how how they load how their knees and up the chain is loaded?
Probably it could be a bit of both, to be honest. It could have it could actually have the effect that it actually changes the contact point. So the initial contact might actually be a bit closer because the foam's not there. So someone would normally be contacting a little bit more in front because the foam is thicker at the rear foot. If they're a heel striker, I'm talking about it wouldn't make a difference if they're forefoot or midfoot striking. But
my guess is that if someone really dorsiflexes, someone enters into the ground and they're super dorsiflexed, they may actually fall further back towards the rear foot because they're actually hitting further back towards the angulation. If they're close to like hitting the rear foot to midfoot, maybe the shoe geometry might actually transition quicker to the midfoot. So I think it depends on the severity of how someone enters into the ground. Like if someone enters in really rear foot, I'd argue this would almost sort of highlight that a touch more. But if someone's close to the midfoot, maybe it does assist them for a bit of anterior offloading. So tricky one, would be interesting to look at.
Yeah, I don't know. Like I see it like the further back the heel is, the more squared off it is, the more anterior loads there are. And then the more rounded, the more rear foot rocker the shoe, the less the anterior loads. I'm talking about like anterior shin splints. So it's like the less common shin splints. It's like more at the front anterior side, not the medial shin splints.
But if you hit the rear rocker and you're quite dorsiflex, you have to sort of transition over the actual rocker. So you'd almost say that you'd stay on the rear foot for a longer period of time to transition off the rocker if you hit it really, really far distally. If you hit the swallow point and then you transition off the curb, you have to sort of go over the curb. That would take a bit longer, I would have thought, unless you're assuming that the geometry of just having the rear foot rocker there means you won't hit that zone. But if someone is able to hit that zone, surely the time to transition across the curb would be longer than across a flat surface.
I don't know. We'll have to test this out, mate. Let's get some of your Run Scribe pods on and
well, I don't rear foot strike, so I think the shoe was rubbish for hitting the midfoot, so so I'm not quite sure. But maybe you're right. Maybe because it just speeds and the foam's firmer as well. So your theory might be right. It might actually get you to the forefoot a bit quicker, so it might offload the anterior loading.
Very good, Nitta. You've got some more protos, apparently.
Well, they're not prototypes. I think they're not on the market yet.
Nah, mate, everything's so late. These actually got pushed back, I reckon, till second half of the year. So
got it, yeah.
You allowed to talk about this?
I'm assuming so. Like if Jace from ASIC sent me this one, and I'm assuming we'll be able to chat about it because I've seen other people wearing the shoe, so who've obviously received it a similar pathway, but. This is the Glide Ride 3, and you can see the biggest changes from the second Glide Ride. If you've seen it, it has that traditional, really aggressive forefoot rocker with no rear foot rocker to it as well. The difference is it is quite compliant, so I can flex the forefoot with ease. The original second model, even the first model, flexing the forefoot was quite a task to be able to do. And they've infused the most superficial, the most dorsal top of the midsole with the FF Blast, and it makes it feel... on first feel much softer, and probably the change, which is probably will sell a bit more, like it looks better as well as just the knitted upper through here. They've really nailed the first feel in terms of the upper, and it is aesthetically pleasing. I think the Glide Ride makes a pretty nice looking shoe, so I think they'll sell well in the males and the females. But in terms of its function, the fit of the upper is a little bit smaller. This is not a 2E width, it's just small. So compared to the same version I had for the second iteration, I had a bit more space at the edge of the toe. Whether they've just decreased the amount of volume of the upper because it's knitted, I'm not 100% sure, but because it's knitted, I expect it to probably become more voluminous as I wear it a bit more as well. But the difference between this and the second iteration is that you can feel the rocker a bit less because you feel how plush the shoe is superficially when you hit the ground. This is a shoe that feels 20% softer than the second one that came out. So I reckon you'll sell more Julian because it'll feel better. But Tom, as a prescription shoe for like big toe away and sesamoiditis, it's a funny story. Clarkey got a pair of these, and because they're so soft in the forefoot, it almost flared up his sesamoid a little bit. He's got quite a cavus or high arch foot type. And so it almost like heated up his sesamoid a little bit as well. So, and I find that, that happened a little bit with the 28th version of the Kayano. It was much softer in the forefoot. So I'm interested to see what you guys think about it. Like, I think it will sell easier for the general population, but in terms of a prescription shoe for like osteoarthritis, which I view this shoe as a clinician, I think it probably doesn't play quite as good a role. And you can probably correct me if I'm wrong here, Julian, but there's not many shoes in that line. So historically, the Bondi, the New Balance More, that were always very stiff, they're all becoming a bit softer and a bit more for the general daily mileage running shoe now compared to what they used to be. Maybe because it's easier to sell.
Yeah, for sure. The More, especially going to the version 3, become much more runnable, really enjoyable shoe, but too much flex in it for that particular unloading. The Bondi, the next version of the Bondi gets a lot softer, a lot more flexible. So yeah, maybe not that referral shoe as much as it was in the past. And so Nitta, as a retailer, if we have to start ruling out shoes like this, it might come back to you guys having to be more flexible in your recommendations, because really there might not be that many shoes out there. The Glide Ride 3 might still be the best option in that space.
I get the one thing I would say is, treating things like midfoot arthritis and big toe arthritis, like these are like sagittal pain. The pain sort of is like provoked by moving in a straight line, and these shoes are just so good at promoting people to move in a straight line and reduce the loading at those areas. I'd almost say the last 3 to 4 years, probably you agree, Tom, that like you can grab someone with these types of pathologies or pain associated to it, put them in this shoe without any orthomechanical therapy to it, and get a pretty good positive outcome, or at least run more steps without less pain. Whereas historically, we used to sort of manipulate the things inside the shoe a lot more to try and stiffen it up, to try and actually create an environment to try and reduce loading on those sites. So, which is usually a more expensive process, like orthotic therapy for the consumer is more expensive than buying a Glide Ride. So whether or not all these shoes become a lot more flexible and compliant, and people practitioners need to start reinforcing the shoe a touch more, because there aren't many options left. We've had this discussion a few times, like the Hoka Stinson, definitely one of them. The Clifton and the Bondi become flexible relatively quick, I'd argue, within 50 to 100 Ks. The Glide Ride, definitely on the market, I thought was the stiffest after the New Balance More 1, and the 2 and 3 versions of that became much more flexible as well. So it's
this is where the plated line probably comes in, right? Hoka X line. So you got the Bondi X now and the Carbon X. I think those two. But
then there's cash. There's cash there as well, isn't there? Like a bit more pricey as well.
Have you guys? We've often had customers come in who bring in their own carbon plate and put it their own little sheet of carbon shaped to a shoe, and they put it under.
Are they really?
Yeah.
Yeah. And
how many have you had doing that?
Over the course of since I've worked, I've probably seen 30 of them. So not that many, maybe a couple a year.
That's
mate,
a lot.
You should see the Instagram of Ballarat Podiatry over there, mate.
Really? Hey, hold up.
Here we go.
No, but so tell me about the difference between having a plate in a shoe and putting a plate underneath a device or under an insole. Yeah, why? What is it? Tell us, Tommy.
Because the plate by itself is just one part of how the shoe with a plate works. So I think it's not as simple. Like, we know that it's not as simple as putting a carbon plate in, because carbon plates have been put in shoes for a very long time. So it's to do with the geometry of the shoe in combination with the plate. So if someone's just putting plates in different shoes, that's risky, because if you're putting a plate in a shoe that's pretty normal standard geometry that doesn't have the rocker design, not high stack, it changes the loading dramatically. Not to say it's going to cause an injury, but it will change loading quite dramatically. Whereas if you put a plate in a very sort of high stack, so if someone put a plate in a Hoka, like a Hoka Clifton, that might be a bit safer than putting it into, I don't know, an Asics Nimbus.
I think we definitely see things like, I think having a stiff like plate within the midsole of a shoe, it superficially feels much more comfortable when it's like part of the midsole, right? So when you stick a plate beneath the sock liner, which I'm assuming that's what they do when they go into store, Julian, you often find people have like this, depending on how curved the plate is, and that's the biggest issue, you're trying to curve the plate to relative to trying to, maybe toe someone a bit earlier or decrease stiffness in the midfoot. increased stiffness in the midfoot, but people strategize a way around that. So you see often people have this like abductory twist where they don't walk through the big toe because the plate's so stiff, and they'll float around it. So you'll start to see a lot more like transverse plane compensation up the chain. And it's because they can't move over the plate because it's too stiff for them to do that. So I can think of a couple scenarios where the plate might be really useful, but it's quite an aggressive thing to do superficially on the foot without manipulating it to the geometry they need. And just sticking that into any shoe, especially like a traditional shoe, like sticking into a gel cumulus, for example, I think the plate's effect is massive and the shoe's effect is quite minimal. And then sticking into a high stack shoe is a different outcome again. So,
And then it would depend how thick the plate is. If it's like there's some like I've seen like marketing for, you've seen those Victory carbon insoles?
The ones they spring, they put a spring.
Yeah, that one. Yeah.
But they're flexible, aren't they? That is an insole. That is a bit more.
I mean, I haven't had one in my hand, but the feeling I've got is that it's almost like a bit of a placebo. Like I think it's very flexible. It doesn't act
probably like a super
very
feed.
rigid
It's probably not
plate.
far off a polypropylene type plate, I'd say. So.
Yeah,
But I think Julian might be talking about, the spring plates you see. I think they're called spring plates. They're like a carbon plate you buy from, like whether it's an engineering factory or perhaps maybe a medical company, for example, which people sort of prescribe to try and treat hallux limitus or like osteoarthritis of the big toe or things like that as well.
They're like a thin little carbon, almost like the shape of an inner sole, but a bit thinner. And they run the length of the shoe and they look horrible, and they honestly, most people hate them. Like most of the customers hate them and whinge about them.
Are they using it for a performance reason? Is it a performance reason they're using it, or is it injury?
It's a medical reason.
I had a patient come through who was given a carbon plate probably only about 4 or 5 months ago. He brought it in with his Nike Free 5.0s. He was wearing under his sock liner. So it's sort of like the compromise, but. I dare I say I go back to it. Shoe companies probably don't listen to this podcast. I'm not sure who does.
They do.
But if they do, there is a market for people prescribing sagittal plane stiffness in shoes to try and treat pain. And for the consumer, I've arguably seen it rejuvenate running careers. People with arthritis in their late 40s onwards, and it makes us as practitioners look good, and it develops a relationship between a special retail outlet plus the practitioner without as much, cost in the middle. So when that starts to disappear, you start gravitating back to, more cost to try and reinforce the shoe, because that customized stuff inside the shoe is expensive. And, it's probably not good for my business as such, but doing less of it ends up being easier for me and better for Julian. But that's the way it should be. These
shoes are coming, though. They're just coming from different areas. So coming up back half of the year, you're going to see the Saucony Endorphin shift. It's going to actually turn into a glide ride, basically. Yep. It's going to be super rigid and it's going to fill that gap.
I don't know this, though, Julian. Like the reps don't come to South Australia anymore. I don't know what's going on.
Well, the rep, no one comes anywhere because of COVID. Yep. So the reps aren't coming to stores either, but we might see one every now and then, or we might do a Zoom with them. And so the Endorphin shift next year turns into a real referral shoe. Not that anyone will know what it is and refer for it. But if someone comes in the store, we'll use it as that. And then there's also a shoe from Solomon coming called the Glide Max.
Yep.
And that's pretty much the same thing. High stack, very stiff, rocket shoe. And it's designed for the road, but you can also, it's kind of like a Stinson ATR. It's a bit of an ATR type shoe, all terrain.
That's good.
So we're going to get we're going to get some action. It just might not be from the Hoka range, like.
And my big question to you is, will you get like much stock of it?
Yes. Well, I'm going for it because I see the value in it because of these reasons. And now a lot of the time, I'd say probably the biggest referral shoe used to be the Brooks Dyad because of the width, because of the rigidity, because of how stable and firm it was. But that's a pretty flat shoe. And without a rocker in it, how much is it actually unloading that first met joint as much as we wanted to, or the Achilles or the calf or the plantar? So
that's my point, though. Like we used to use that shoe a lot with like traditional orthotic therapy or conservative off-the-shelf orthotic therapy, but some of these other shoes we've been able to use without doing anything like that at all. So, because there was no rocker, there was no sagittal plane assistance in the dyad really, and I don't think there still is, to be honest. I think it's still the same sort of heavy, stiff, rigid shoe.
It's very good for someone who's unstable on their feet, but that market's getting smaller, and the rocker has changed the game. It's really changed the industry because even we're seeing it come through the jogging shoes. If I put a shoe on now that doesn't have like a moderate to high rocker, I feel like it lacks a little bit of excitement. It feels a little dead to me. Like I want some love under my forefoot when I'm toeing off. And you look at our shoe wall and you're seeing this shape in nearly all the shoes, and they're the ones that are selling well too because they feel good to run in.
Yep. Good. I mean, besides that, like I've been wearing the Kawana. I had a race on the track the other night. For the first time I went out the Dragonfly. I got rid of it because I feel like I'm bottoming that shoe out.
It's a spike. Of course you bottom it out. Fucking hell.
Yeah, but like, everyone talks about it being a bit of in the super shoe category, and I just feel like it's no different to a traditional Victory to me, just a bit superficially softer. But when I start running, it feels the damn same.
It's very different, mate.
Yeah, I know, but I just I'm hitting one small piece of the forefoot, and it's just
you got unique
there, right?
mechanics. You got unique mechanics.
I put the pods on. I put the pods on the other night off the Air Victory. It's the first time I've run a race in it, and it definitely suited the mechanics more. It got more response from the shoe. Felt better the next day in the carbs, to be honest, than I did in the Dragonfly. Put a heel pitch in it. Unfortunately, the upper of the shoe it's not like it's a bit counterintuitive to put a heel pitch into that upper because it's pretty flimsy. So but it went really, really well. So in terms of like a middle distance shoe, someone who's really 4-footy, I think the Air Victory, similar to the Max Fly, would be probably a better option for guys running 1500 and below if they really like it. So
the Max Fly.
Yeah, well, the Max Fly is the same shoe. It's just the plate goes further back to the rear foot.
Is the Sprinter coming out in him?
Well, I've ordered it. They feel almost identical. The upper's better as well. Nah, very similar, mate. I've seen enough half milers wear the Max Fly now. So,
could you imagine? Not everyone lands on their toes like you do.
Yeah, but a lot do. So it's just a suggestion, It's there as an option.
You've seen that 10K study they did where they looked at the foot strikes.
Yeah, and there's guys in the front. Galen Rupp still wears the Victory, I think, for long events. So. And not that he runs the track anymore. And the only other shoe that I've got recently is Zara's out of the Adipas now. So our daughter has got this little Nike Free from the running company at Adelaide, and Chicken sorted her out with these. And I tell you what, this anatomical fit's still good. I know some podiatrists hate putting kids into shoes, but that's anatomical fit. It's a low pitch shoe. I don't know what the stack is. She's sort of sitting in the shoe. It's just a sock liner. It's got to be no pitch, doesn't it?
It's like 8 centimeters long.
No, the pitch of it, like the
I know, but it's 8 centimeters long. No one's going.
Yeah.
They're not going to give you.
Anyway, one thing I was noticing, because she can, like in our little Adipas, she can't hit the ground very hard, but the fact of having more foam beneath her foot, she can slam her body into the ground with these shoes because she can.
Bone loading. It's great.
That's it. So distributing the load through those lower legs, so building up some strength.
Building her up for the Alpha Fly version 10.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, you've seen her at sport, so I think these are more for aesthetic. They're not really good for athletics at the moment, so she's no good at that yet. But
she'll get there. She'll
get there, yeah. But that's it from me. That's all I've really worn. I've been rotating about 80 Ks a week, rotating between some high stackers. I think I'll use this a lot. I think I'll use the Kawana for maybe 40-50% of my weekly load, I reckon.
Yeah, I'll bang it.
Did we talk about the Julian probably doesn't want to because he doesn't sell it, but the Takumi Sen 8?
It's been a flop, mate. Big flop.
I mean, I've done 2 workouts in it, and one was on the track, and the workout was quite long, and I found pulled up with traditional calf soreness, like DOMs, like I normally would. And when I did a workout on the grass track, so like reps of 1Ks and 400s, like a blended session, I loved it on the grass. I thought it was like one of the best racing flats I've worn on grass for its the purpose. It felt better at shorter paces, so 400s, like 62, 64 seconds. Like I could turn my legs over quicker, but I just I'm a bit soft. Like I wear a lot of high stack shoes. And so when I wore it on the track, I found the next day I was pretty cooked in the calves, and probably for 3 days I was as well. So would I choose it over a Adios Pro? Probably not.
Yeah, I can only pass on the feedback of Toby, who works in the store, who has both shoes, and he he doesn't wear it very often because he doesn't quite find the point of it really. Like I know the purpose of it was to be a more firm, lower stack, flat, more responsive than a super shoe. It's not legal on the track, so it's not like you can't really wear it there. You're not going to wear it in cross country because it doesn't suit that. So he's finding it hard to find a home for it because he would just wear a Vaporfly or a Adios Pro over the top of it. And I kind of get a feeling that the Streak Fly is going to be a similar type flop, Tom. Where there's a lot of hype. There's a lot of hype around this Streak Fly, and I know like there's still a market for traditional flats, but I just can't see someone gravitating towards it over the Vaporfly when they don't have to. So I still see the 10K race being like wearing a Vaporfly much more beneficial to their running economy, and they're going to get better performance from that.
If I was to do a 5K road race, I'd still wear Next Percent over the Takumi Sen.
Yeah.
I get that. It's just interesting. Yeah, it'd just be interesting to see what happens moving forward. It's all that some of the other models.
It goes back to that little debate where whether training in all these super shoes, for example, maybe at a younger age, maybe the more quality running, are you losing a few of those developmental stiffness properties by not exposing yourself to the traditional flat and making the tendon itself stiffer? Because when you're in these compliant shoes, maybe the workouts are easier, maybe you can do them faster, maybe you can do them better, but maybe the long-term setting is maybe wear a traditional shoe every now and then means you'll get more back from the super shoe when you get a bit more experience as well. So
this shoe's 33 millimeters high.
I know. It feels a hell of a lot firmer than the other range, like just 6 millimeters up. And you think it shouldn't be a massive difference, but it feels dramatically different. So
it does feel different, yeah.
I actually agree with you. I agree with you if we talked about traditional flats like a Waffle or an old Type A from Saucony, Nike Streak, LT, those shoes. I still think there's a market there for that.
I think but I don't think those shoes are dramatically different from the Takumi Sen. I think the feel of them aren't that much dramatically different. And, I guess that goes to show you should have those traditional shoes as an option because they are not much different.
When did you put a Streak LT on last?
Nah, I actually wore a pair of traditional Victories on the track the other day, just like the original running spike, right? And my calves were burning after that. But I'm wearing a Hyperspeed. Like I've got a Hyperspeed still in the box. I've done strides in a traditional Adios 4 that I still have, but even that doesn't feel much different.
Don't count.
No, they don't. But what else do you wear those shoes for? If you're doing a long workout, you put more shoe on, don't you? I'm sure Toby's training for a marathon historically. He probably wore, shoes for a marathon workout. If he did track workouts, maybe Takumi Sen.
Tell Toby to be careful with his high stackers, all right? I've told him this. He's got perineal. He's got perineal issues. He's got to be.
Oh, mate,
don't put the
Takumi
Sen 8s a bit more.
The Adios Pro 2 is so inverted. If you want to cause a perineal issue, that's what you do. Put that shoe on.
It's a run crew thing.
It's a run crew.
Julian, I actually do have a question for you. I've moved my backyard to the Bel Air National Park now. I don't own any trail shoes.
Ooh.
Is it worth getting a trail shoe?
Are you running on trails or dirt roads?
Trails and dirt roads.
In winter, I think you're going to appreciate a trail shoe more than summer.
All right, give me your top 3 trail shoes on the market right now.
Right now?
Yep.
Okay. Saucony Ultra Glide. So it's Saucony's newest shoe. It's softer than a lot of others. Saucony have always put out really hard, firm shoes. And they had this sort of theory that the more experienced or the faster you were of a runner, that you wanted a harder shoe and you wanted less cushioning. And it never made sense to me. It's like, who are you talking to? What good runners are you asking that want less cushioning? They're running 100 miles a week. Give them more cushioning. They're getting sorer. Anyway. I used to get in arguments all the time around this because they would come out and they'd say, "Oh, this is the pro model from this guy, and he's a fast runner, so it'll suit him." And no, 100 miles a week in this shoe, he won't do 20 miles a week in this shoe. It's too firm. So they're sort of coming around to it, and they've found this Ultra Glide, which is soft and it's pretty poppy and pretty fun shoe. It's going to be it's a bit narrow still, but that's Solomon for you. So that's the Ultra Glide. The Trail More, Nitta, the Trail More is very fun. It's a big stack shoe. It's got a Vibram outer sole, pretty loved.
Is that softer? Is that softer than the Kiwana?
Oh, way softer.
Yeah, okay. Yep.
Way softer. It's not a shoe to go quick in. It's a shoe to go slow in. It's to do doubles in.
Yep.
I know, like Ali, New Balance athlete, spends a shitload of time running around Aries Inlet in it. Bree loves it. I've worn it around. The only thing is, again, downside, the toe protector on it. So the toe cap, they're made of a super hard material that destroys your toe. So all three of us have toe-related irritations because of the toe cap. So trail shoes, I think they overthink it, and they put things on them that create problems like this. The third, what's good right now? The Mafate Speed from Hoka. So Hoka's got a couple of trail. Oh, actually, all right. I'm going to get you with this one. The Ultra Mont Blanc. It's about to come out. So it's their plated fast shoe. It uses their fast foam. It's designed for someone who wants a lighter weight trail shoe, but it wants almost a super shoe feel on the trail. So
that's good. I've got to speak to the Ultra guy this week.
This is Ultra.
Yeah.
Oh,
it needs a heel raise though, no doubt.
Zero drop, but it's not. So Ultra now are doing multiple widths in their shoes. Oh, well, they're not multiple widths, but they've got different shapes. So they've got the traditional shape, which you'll find in a Lone Peak, which is that very anatomical toe box. But then they have like a more standard fit as well. And this Mont Blanc is on the more standard side. So it won't make traditional Ultra wearers like fall in love with it because of the shape, but it'll suit the mass market. And it's expensive. I think it's going to be like $350.
Yeah.
But it looks, that's what I'm going to get. That's going to be my trail.
Stock it?
Yeah, well,
so what are they,
small range
are
because
foams
it's so
good?
Expensive. Yeah,
So
this new one they've got is good, very good. Like Ultra has progressed massively. It's like they had this massive cash injection after selling to one of the big corporations. And they went from a small brand that used to make pretty average shoes with a good concept to a good concept with big financial backing and capital. And so their uppers are as good as they come. And their foams now feel amazing underfoot. We're doing really well with Ultra because their shoes feel premium. And we're starting to see super shoes come. They sponsor that Frank Lana, the marathon runner, Lara Lana, from Roots Running. And he's, I don't think is he going under 210? Did he go under 210 at that marathon project? Oh, he paced it. But yeah, they're bringing out a super shoe. So they're bringing out a plated super shoe with magic foam. Magic foam's the key, and they're going to use that in this shoe as well, I think.
Nice. Very cool. Good tips. So, Tom, what's next for you, mate? How long you got left in the boot? And what's the plan now? What are you doing with your life?
I've probably got 3 weeks in the boot still.
Yep.
Then it's probably going to be 2 weeks of just walking around, getting things moving again out of the boot, and then I'll start a bit of a back to run.
Yep.
What are you
looking forward to running in?
Good question. I don't even know. I'm gonna have to get into something like pretty stable and boring, aren't I? I'm gonna get into like I don't know.
Brooks Ghost, baby. Brooks Ghost.
Yeah, mate, no more Reebok. No more Reebok low profile.
You still got those adrenalines.
I don't have adrenalines.
No, he got the Aurora. You got the adrenaline. We got the Aurora.
Oh, yeah, the Aurora. The Aurora is what...
Mate,
I was in the Aurora when my foot got run over.
Yeah, and you know what? I've lost one of my Auroras, mate. Like, I've got the left one, but the right one is somewhere gone. So the Kiwana's come just in time because I cannot find it. Yeah, one of my favourite mileage shoes.
Seriously a good shoe, though.
Absolutely.
Seriously a good shoe.
But it must be time. Like, Brooks must be coming out with their glycerin soon with the...
it's all delayed. It's delayed. It's still... Everything's late. This stuff's been pushed back. I was telling you all. No one listened to me. Now you're all wondering where they are. You forgot. Short memory.
When's the streak fly? When's the streak fly coming? Let's go back to the streak fly. When do you get it?
March, April. I'm not giving an exact date because it'll just show up one day and all of a sudden we got it. But that'll be a fun day in store.
That will be.
Most anticipated shoe for a very long time, the streak fly.
Tommy, you're a long way away from the streak fly with that metatarsal fracture.
I know. It's so sad. I was just saying the other day, like how far away I am from the Victory cross country spike that I love.
Oh,
which is like barefoot with a few mil of cushion. What races? What do you guys got coming up? Are you guys seriously doing the whatever it is, that stupid pro race?
Apparently. Shit.
I'll probably do. I've done the Herb a couple times. All right, I'll probably do it again this year, I think.
What's the best you finished there, Nitta?
I don't know. I podiumed on the shorter events, the 550 and the 800, but never in the mile. So
550, Tom. The 550,
mate.
What the fuck is that? That's not a race.
Imagine how much more enjoyable finishing a race in just over a minute is. It's really
550
enjoyable.
running around the car park. You got to do a lap and then you run around the car park.
Julian, I hope they give me a 5 meter, like just you're 5 meters in front of me for the mile, and that would just be ideal.
I'll be an aerobic beast by then.
Yeah, well, you've got a couple of weeks till then as well. No, I've got the state champs tomorrow night for the 1500, and tomorrow night for the 1500. And
Masters or open?
Nah, I entered open like I did for the 3K, Julian. But if they put me in, I think I'll just sneak into the A race after running under 4 the other night. And then I'm going to run the 800 the day after. But that will be the old boys race because you have to break probably 154 to make the open final here.
My prediction, Nitta, 2 weeks from now, announces a new retirement, Tom.
Yeah.
Blown Achilles, retirement. I'm just going to...
Nah, mate, I've got the Air Victories with a heel raise in. They offload my carbs.
We will see.
Yeah.
We will see.
The shoe I needed when I was 20. You don't... When the kids come in and buy shoes from your shop, Julian, you got to tell them when they pick up a pair of Dragonflies, they don't know how lucky they are.
Mate, if I had Dragonflies in my store, I wish.
I think there's some here. They must be not selling them as much here in Adelaide. Must be good track running going on in Victoria.
Ballarat, home a distance.
True. Yep. We need to have a education weekend / running weekend at in Ballarat one weekend. We'll have to organise that, Tommy.
Let's tee it up. Yeah. I'm keen.
There's not enough education in running footwear that's not old fashioned anymore. So we need to bring it to the fore. Bring the worlds together, podiatry and retail.
There's a business plan right here.
It is, yeah. Oh, it's good to chat, guys. And we'll chat next week. I'm sorry to the listeners for waiting so long. We tried to get a guest. Well, actually, I tried to get a guest from the US, but the time was just too awkward. We still can't get him in terms of trying to get all three of us together because we all own businesses and we all have families, so it's just tough to get together.
Yeah.
Maybe next
to
time.
Tee it up anyway.
That's all right. Next one.
All right. See you, fellas.
See you later,
All right,
guys.
Who'd have stayed hung up? Who'd have been knocked down? But here I stand, a man whose roots he understands, and I'm gonna hold my head up high. I was told as a young man, doesn't matter if you're white or black. Just show love to everyone you meet. Doesn't matter